Okay, I'm calling the meeting of the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting for Tuesday, September 19th, 2017. Call to order.
All right. Mr. Batty?
Present.
Mr. Jessic?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. LaSalle?
Here.
Mr. McEnroe?
Here.
Mr. Lyman?
Here.
And Mr. Mahoney?
Well, welcome back, everybody, from our July and August vacations, at least from this committee. Everybody else, I'm sure, had a very busy summer, as I did. The first item is, the second item is actually approval of the minutes of June 20th, 2017. Does anybody have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
I have one comment.
Yes.
On the first page in the upper right-hand corner, it's got the May 16th date.
Yes, I saw that up in the right-hand corner. Yes.
Oh, okay. Good catch. Okay, a call for approval of the minutes.
I move.
Anybody in favor, say aye.
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 Anybody in opposition? Passed unanimously. Agenda analysis, item 3. Does anybody have anything that they want to add to the agenda or change? Okay, we'll go on to citizen comments, and it doesn't look like we have any citizens this evening, so we'll move on to item 5, new business discussion.
John, what was the results of that survey on that street light you had over that you asked us about?
So I've got, so I didn't ask everybody on the TAC about that, but I did ask a few. I got feedback from, I want to say, 5 different folks, and I've been pulling all those over their varying opinions. So I know, you mean the street light on Red Away and yeah. No, Henry, I think I asked you and some folks out in the neighborhood out there. I think
Okay, new business discussion items. The first item will be the neighborhood traffic fact sheet. I think, Henry, you're going to cover that?
Yeah. What?
I'll go ahead and introduce it. So, you remember our last meeting, we had a draft of that document. And we decided to put together a small subcommittee that would work at least 1-2 meetings over the summer. And that included Edward and Henry and
Gary and Ed.
Gary, yeah. So, I think I was involved in one of those meetings, but we handed that off. Martin took the reins on that with Lisa, and so there was at least one other meeting after the one that I was in that really kind of added some more content to that, right? And so this is kind of the draft of the result of that. I think Lisa and Martin spent some time with it too. So I went through it very quickly, but yeah, if you could give us an update, that'd be great.
Well, first thing I should like to point out is in your staff report, I'm not the chair, I'm the vice chair.
Okay.
I'm only the subcommittee chair.
That's what it meant. Yeah, you're the subcommittee chair of this. Yeah.
Okay, just want to clarify that. Right now, at this stage, content has been moved from what I had put together earlier in the year and is now moving toward a more city-oriented work that reflects more of the city policies and the city needs, which is absolutely perfect because that's got to serve the city. But at this point, it is not completely finished. It still needs to be wordsmithed a little bit. There's still possibility of some content changes that could be made, and it very definitely needs to be read through by the committee and commented on. And I would suggest too that you ask your wives and kids and non-city folks to read through it to see if they understand it. You know, oftentimes we can read through something like this and say it's perfect, and it still isn't clear as to what we're trying to say. So if the more opinions that we can get as to what is clear and what is not, and what needs to be massaged a little bit to get meaning across or eliminate any sort of confusion, is where it needs to be right now. And it is frankly getting a little larger than what I had anticipated. One of the things that is on here, it's still a little hanging in the air, is Martin had, on the traffic calming aspects, was looking at the possibility of putting in whether speed would be affected by these or not. And that still needs to be dropped in here. Most of these, by definition, speed would be affected somewhat. Certainly the chicane is meant to slow people down. The one that comes to mind as being the most demonstrative of this is Lombard Street in San Francisco. I think you got to be like 10, 15 mile an hour to traverse that.
Yeah, but that's going down too, isn't it?
Well, that's no worse than Pearl.
It has more turns.
So anyways, that's it in a nutshell on that. It just needs to be thoroughly and carefully read and commented on for any clarity and any needs to do any more massaging to it.
I think we said that it still needed some formatting also.
That would be about the last step, is formatting, because they're going to have to put it in the way that they want to present it.
Yeah,
Anybody have any-
definitely could be maybe prettied up and let Lisa take her time to make symbols look good.
And I certainly want to thank Lisa for the time, and Martin both, for the time and effort they put into this, because I know it's been a bunch.
Does anybody have any questions about this document?
I still had a couple comments on it. I was wondering how they should be submitted, or is the subcommittee going to meet again there?
Well, I would sort of request that you submit them to Lisa and then have her give them back to the subcommittee so we can either circulate them by email or get together at a time to iron out anything that might be more difficult than just penciling it in.
Well, I have several questions because I looked at this from the standpoint of a neighborhood chair or a regular citizen. I think this was one of the objectives, was to give something to the neighborhoods
Right.
that they could use. So my first question is, when this is all done, will it be posted on the city website? I thought it probably would be. The introduction, I have a question, is it also outlines procedures for citizens to become involved in traffic control measures in their neighborhood. Now, who is this meant to be read by? Neighborhood associations, I assume?
My opinion is that it can be read by anybody and everybody. And the procedures that would be mentioned in here would be very sketchy in the sense that be pretty near everyone is going to be see staff for further direction. But in terms of what could be addressed and is more or less changeable, yeah, that would need to be pointed out.
Well, I'd like to congratulate on the subcommittee on all the work they put into this, though it's obvious it was a lot of hard work put into it. And that first page, it refers to warrants on conditions of usage. And my first question would be, how do I look up warrants? You read this document, but it doesn't tell you how to look up warrants. So I think that should be included. This next page, it refers to average daily trips. And my question would be, how do I look up ADTs for a particular area? Give them a direction to go from that, so that they don't have to be really bothering staff all that much. It would be a help to staff also.
That information is on the website, isn't it?
Right. It is for not every street.
Not every street, but for the major streets.
Yeah.
If we had a link that we could put in there that they could look up some of those, that might be helpful. And then it mentions public transportation and minibus service provided by the Pioneer Center. Try to guide them on how do I find out details about the minibus service. They can probably go to, I would first go to the Pioneer Center, but not everybody would automatically assume that. So point them in the right direction. There. Well, let's see. Still on item 3, in regard to how streets are classified. Is there a master list of all the streets classifications?
In the transportation system plan, there is, and it's also available. I recollect is it's available through our mapping system, so you can actually see them in that direction as well.
Okay, and point them in that direction. Speed zones, excuse me, it refers to speed zones, and my question would be, how do I initiate the process for a speed zone change? Then would we refer them directly to the TAC, or what is the best direction for that?
We intentionally.
That would be through a city process, I imagine. I mean,
Yeah. So
Requires a city ordinance, doesn't it?
we at this point don't really have a published process on how that. Usually, what happens is we get the request. It can be here, it can be from the neighborhood association, and in fact, we have one right now that was requested. I think even at the last meeting that. It's really upon staff to reach out to ODOT, ask them to get us on the list to review that, share with them as much information as we can about the current signposting and what we know to be the 85th percentile speeds based on our traffic information. Give them that information, but there's not like an application process. It's more just hearing it. Internally kind of validating that that's probably an appropriate work item for the state to do. And if we disagree with the request, then, responding to that person making the request. But we don't have a written policy.
you don't set the speed limits on your own streets.
We don't. We rely on the state for that. Yep. It's a state. You didn't read this. It's
Oh, I'm just.
yeah, no, speed zones are established by the state currently. And there are some exceptions to that for, like the city of Portland has some exemptions that allow them to do that, but most smaller jurisdictions rely on the state for.
Actually, the road authorities have the ability to conduct their own speed zone studies, but they're not valid, the results are not valid until they've been reviewed by ODOT, Speed Zone Board, and the procedures are that to be followed are outlined, and it's really easy to muck up. So it's, you know, it's easier to let ODOT do it because they have a couple of guys who only do that.
Paragraph 5, or section 5. This, what I'm going to read now is what I think is really needed. It states Oregon City has a stop sign policy brochure available in the Public Works Street Division section of the official Oregon City website. Now what you've done here is you've pointed them right where they need to go to find out about stop signs. And then the next paragraph refers to studies and experience have shown that using stop signs to control speeding is not an effective means of calming traffic. I would like an explanation of what that is, because to the average guy out there, the stop sign would be a deterrent to speed. So just to say it without any backup, I think is not quite there. In paragraph 6, or section 6, refers to crosswalks. And my question would be, if I was reading this as a layman, how is a crosswalk request processed? So just point them in the right direction. Then my final one is the final page, which is the last page of traffic calming measures. And again, how do I go about requesting these? You show them what it is and show them the pros and the cons of all of the different traffic calming devices, but then they don't know where to go from there to maybe get a speed hump put in their street or a chicane or something like that. You know, these are all good traffic calming devices. It might spark some interest out there. This is great, would be great for my neighborhood. Mm-hmm. But now I don't know where to go. Yeah. And that's obviously, I read it all, and that's the last of my comments.
And I'm going to pass these over to Lisa because I know she's been taking notes, but you already have them written down.
John, what would you think about a one number that the public would call to initiate a concern, or to express a concern they have regarding anything in the city, which would include traffic? And it would be a common number where they wouldn't have to look for a number. You know, you call some of these.
Is that something like Portland's ombudsman that you're thinking about?
Well, I don't know if I want to call them that, because
that's an office, but it's a one-stop.
Yeah,
one-stop shopping is at work.
Right. It's like you call your insurance company, you know, for the car that you just wiped out. And you find out that your call is very important to us, you know, but you wait a half an hour, and they tell you in the meantime you better be prepared to wait another 17 minutes. You think it's going to be, the next call is going to be 16 minutes? Mm-hmm. No, it's 18 minutes. You make it. But what I'm getting at is just a common number where they could call in and people would be directed to where they would best get the answer they need. Now, that's frustrating.
Sort of like saying that if you call this number, your next one's going to be, is this a nuisance call? Is this a police call? Is this a fire, a lot call? Is this a traffic call?
I called 911 the other day, and by the time I got through, the emergency was gone. They had the wreck cleaned up. Mm-hmm. The guy was hauled off to the hospital. And they wanted to know what my name was. But is that something the city is...
Well, I'll have to look into that. I know that we have a common number for City Hall that is well published, and that number goes directly to a person unless it's after hours. Mm-hmm. And so, that person is right here, same receptionist you get to here. So then route that call to, based on the conversation
Mhm.
that they're hearing on the other end of the phone,
Yeah.
to the best person that they think that should go to.
Yeah.
And so,
It wouldn't be bad, John, to have like identify a number for traffic.
what kind of
Identify, specify a number for traffic related, issues.
Have this one number, this single call in, and they're routing everything. If someone doesn't know where to call, they call.
Yeah, I mean,
Pretty hard.
I'm hearing two things. One is, is there a dedicated phone number for traffic related stuff, and is there a dedicated phone number for any kind of question, right? And so I think we definitely don't have a dedicated phone number for traffic specific questions, but we do have a general city hall number that then would. But it typically, unless they're on the phone, it might put you on hold for a while, but not for too long, and until they can then take the call, hear what the complaint is. It could be about utility bill, and they'll ship it to utility billing. It could be about planning, and they go to planning, or it could be about pothole, and they go to operations, or it could be about traffic, and they usually come back to my office or someone in the department that might be actually in their office. So I don't know. I mean, I like that idea. It's kind of like 411 or, more of a non-emergency number that could work like that.
But if they're traffic or transportation, related issues, then it's going to engineering maybe, and you guys have engineering number, right?
Right. So if you're saying it should be published, there should be a phone number published in this document for who to contact. I think that's doable. We could give them a specific number for this.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
No, I think that would work. But I mean, generally, citywide, I think it's.
No. But if somebody's looking and they're dealing with, they're curious about extending, sidewalk along the street to improve the safety. They have to first find out City Hall, then they have to go call City Hall, talk to reception, explain their story, then,
right.
Oh, well, maybe it's John Lewis, or maybe it's this person, or maybe it's that person, and then this way you guys know, okay, well, if we're going to be receiving these related issues, we may as well just take them. That way eliminates
that
conversation.
That middleman. Yes.
The perception is if you don't get the answer you're seeking, which might be a legitimate answer, you don't get the question answered, City Hall doesn't know what the heck they're doing, if you don't get the answer.
It would be kind of like a City Hall telephone OC request. Instead of being on the computer, it would be on the phone.
Yeah.
One problem with the phone system here that I've run into is because not all departments are in City Hall, and they're not all on the switchboard for City Hall. If you call if you need to have a building code issue, and you call the desk here at City Hall, they'll make you call the building department separately. Mm. Likewise, I think there's another one too that
Police department.
Yeah, nuisance is up with the police department, and parks are over at the cemetery. Mm-hmm. So,
some numbers can be transferred, others not. You're right. But operations can be transferred.
Mm-hmm. And building and planning can be as well. It's police department and code enforcement. They're on a separate phone system.
Yeah.
Okay, so good feedback there. I think having links to web pages is really pretty easy. Adding who to contact, and that's fairly easy as well.
That was one of the things that we were going to put in, but I'm glad Bob brought it back up again because it had slipped my mind, to be honest.
90% of the problems I ran into when I was in the public sector was always trace it back to communication. Inevitably, it goes back to communication. Does the right person get to talk to the right person? And there's a lot of potholes along the way. No pun intended, but we've all been there.
Oh, yeah.
We all know that. We all know.
Lisa, you can keep my notes, but I'd like to have them back
Okay. Sure.
sometime in the next 6 months or something.
So I was looking at this document, and we talk about roundabouts, and we also talk about traffic circles, and they seem to be, take as much complexity and they cost about the same, but that, I don't know if that is quite correct.
That was one of my comments too, that the hard hats and dollar signs for traffic circle was too high.
Yeah. Also under the roundabouts, you have positive aspects are, and you list one, then negative aspects are, and you list three, two of which I would consider positives, and then you again say negative aspects are with four more items listed. And I think that's just a, copy and paste format issue, but it could be confusing for somebody trying to read through this document and make sense of it.
Again, I recommend everybody take this out to somebody who's totally uninformed, if you will, and see what comments you get.
Oh, there we come quite more.
Well, I probably shouldn't say this on TV, but my wife hardly ever listens to me anyway, so why would I?
And she's got a direct line.
She never watches any of these meetings, so I think I'm home free.
Well, she'd be a perfect one to go through here then.
Yeah, she probably would, yeah.
Well, some of the stuff that I remember, it's been a while since I've looked at this webpage, but for instance, Gilson and Associates, who's done presentations for us, they've got, they work at a federal level on some of the like roundabouts, for instance, and traffic circles, and they've got white papers that are pretty informative. So that person that really wants to drill down into what a roundabout really is all about, we could provide a link to a document like that. So I think we have links to a couple of Kittleson white papers on that already.
Well, also a lot of these, there's probably AASHTO or there's different things that we could link in, and then roundabout, they'll get pictures, they'll get visual stuff, they'll get. It'll be nice if it maybe can be somewhat interactive. So they're already on that website, and when they click this thing, if they want more information, it puts them in the right place where they can get even more information.
I think this could be one of the best public information documents that has been put out by the city, really. I mean, it's got the potential. You may think it's too big, but I don't. I don't know what anybody else thinks.
Well, the only gotcha that I can see anywhere is the very slim possibility at this point that it gets too verbose and too nitty-picky detail things.
But you don't have to if you're just linking it.
Exactly.
If you want to really read these two papers, or you want to go to AASHTO's website or whatever that information is, they could just go and see it, and then makes this document simple and clean, gives them stuff in a nutshell. And then if they really neighborhood things like, oh, we really should get this roundabout here, and they want to get more information, they'll go and get that.
It certainly is the direction that I was seeing that this should go in the sense that if you think of a hyper document, this is sort of like the first page, and then you can spread out into space, if you will, and find the information you need if you know what you're looking for.
With putting links in it, it's going to require maintenance, ongoing maintenance. I think we need to consider that. Who's going to do the ongoing maintenance? Every time you got a link,
Especially if a third-party link goes down.
Right, those things you gotta keep those links accurate.
That's a good point.
On the other hand, if you put in titles that are a little more durable, because the link can go down, but the title will be available somewhere.
Well, yeah, you could make a list of references down the bottom of the page and then just put number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those are, like Federal Highway, and they're pretty
Pretty stable.
They're pretty stable, yeah.
It's some sort of like hosted by a company or something.
Yeah, maybe not so much. Okay.
Okay, shall we move on?
Please.
We don't want to have to. I mean, this is one of those documents that I think is for one easily amended, and it's not necessarily an adopted document. It's more of just a fact sheet, right? So we could, we can.
I would suggest when it's all sort of wrapped up that we do it and it be sent over as an information thing to the commission, just so they know that we're doing something.
Yeah. Maybe even do a presentation on it.
Right.
So we're taking items and issues and subjects that have already been adopted by the city. It doesn't have to be re-adopted, right?
There's nothing in here that would need to be re-adopted.
Okay,
it's just information that says, here's what we think we mean.
So when the commission gets it, they don't have to take action. They just say, oh, great job.
Yep, exactly.
And they congratulate you.
No, not me. They if congratulations are in order, they congratulate Lisa first, and then the rest of us.
Is that congratulations or blame?
Well, I prefer to think congratulations.
Okay, item 5A, neighborhood traffic. We just did that.
Yeah, we want
5B, TAC housekeeping items. John.
So, well, I think Lisa can go. Would be better to hear from Lisa just because she's put more thought into this than I have. But we've got some membership issues to talk through.
Yes, we have 3 upcoming TAC vacancies. One being Mr. Batty, who this is actually his last meeting, so he will be resigning a little early before his term is over. And then John Anderson and Gary Johnson both have terms expiring December 31st. So,
I think Thomas's reason should be explained
yes,
to the rest of the committee.
Thomas?
Yeah, not just bailing out because I'm tired.
Not at all.
No, I'm relocating. My wife and I are moving to Lakeview, Oregon.
That's a rather far commute.
Yeah, that's why we've opted to relocate rather than try to make the drive back and forth. She's accepted the position as finance director for the city of Lakeview, and I will be opening a bike shop down there.
Well, congratulations for getting into a different area and learning new solutions.
How far is that from here?
It's about forever.
Yeah, it's a good 6-hour drive, yeah.
On the other side of Klamath Falls, right?
Right, yeah, it's about 95 miles east of K Falls.
It's about halfway to Reno.
And about a whole new weather zone.
Yeah.
Zip code,
Yeah.
Yes, and many thanks for volunteering on this
And
committee.
I've enjoyed my time here. I've learned a lot being involved in this committee.
Yeah.
Hope to get a chance to make use of some of what I've learned here in my new community.
Well, if anybody has anybody that they think would be useful to replace Thomas, why I would encourage you to tell them to put their application.
And Thomas is the chamber's representative.
Oh, that's right.
So-
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And I'm not sure if our new chamber director is really aware of
Where of this?
all of these circumstances, so he
Okay.
might need a little bit of assistance figuring this out.
Okay, we'll note that.
Maybe I don't mind reaching out to the
Okay,
chamber.
sure, that'd be great.
Do you know what the deadline is for reapplying if I decide to do that?
I received an email from Katie saying September 29th. However, I haven't seen any announcement on the website or anywhere else. Did you receive a generic like an automated email from her letting you know your term is expiring soon?
Yeah, and it
Okay.
had an application attached, but didn't have a deadline.
Okay. Yeah, the only deadline I've seen is September 29th. I don't know if that's been adjusted or changed in any way, but I can communicate with you and let you know.
Okay.
Are you considering reapplying?
Well, it's still up in the air. I'm probably leaning toward not reapplying.
But we need you.
Well, thank you.
Can't have any of that. Baloney.
And
Rather that I just leave the committee by croaking.
I haven't heard from Mr. Anderson if he was reapplying yet or not. Have you heard anything? No. Okay.
His term is up.
Yes. December 31st.
Oh.
Yes. Yeah. I know they were hoping to get a head start so we can do interviews earlier this year after what happened last year. So, yeah.
I heard it was going to be another hard winter.
Hope not.
So if you have deadline 29th, then we would then be able to have those interviews in
She was hoping October and November. So
either October or
yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'll follow up with her.
And then that would be if it's in October, would be when?
October 17th. So that would be about 3 weeks after the deadline, not quite. So I think November would be more realistic.
Probably out that week.
It would be, yeah, I will be too.
Yes.
We're going to the same conference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't our bylaws address that?
As in a quorum, make sure that there's enough.
No,
here,
what
or
month we take the nominations and voting?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
No.
I was just reviewing the bylaws too.
I'm probably thinking of the
We
Park
did make
Place.
some changes. We did do some changes there so that we wouldn't have, well,
Issue with
this
the
gets
chair.
complicated, especially if the chair is up. That's what I remember we tried to resolve. I'm not sure we really
I
did.
think what you're thinking of is the selection of the chair and the vice chair when we have to decide that.
Oh, yes, I was, yes. Okay. But we were, and I'll take responsibility for this not happening, is that we were supposed to have a meeting between Gary and Jonathan and I about trying to fix those bylaws so that last situation with me being at the end of my term and then going into the January where I wouldn't officially be there until the mayor appointed me. And then that didn't happen because of the weather until February, I think it was.
Yeah.
And that was my fault, and I'll try to get that meeting arranged as soon as possible.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than you being absent, for me, that was a good time to do it because I didn't necessarily need to be here for that meeting and be part of the interview process necessarily. Martin's also, so maybe I'll just jump into that. Martin is going to be gone, so I don't know that I mentioned this to. Well, you probably don't all know, but Martin's active duty Coast Guard, and he's been called up to help with a lot of the hurricane damage. And he started out in Texas, and then he ended up in St. Louis, which is kind of a weird place, but he was more in a command center there. And then he's headed soon to Miami, and I think he's pretty certain that his kind of final destination will be St. Thomas. Or somewhere there in the Caribbean to help deal with some of those. So he's got called up for 60 days, and he's pretty sure he's gonna be back at the end of the 60 days or shortly there before. But that puts him out until the end of October. So we're trying to figure out how to kind of cover all the bases. That conference week is a tough week because I think Alita is also out that week. So So, but Lisa and I did talk about it, and the fact that if we were doing interviews, you know, you could still have that meeting, do the interviews, and there wouldn't be a lot of content that, you know, Martin or I might bring, but Lisa can bring a lot of content, and you guys can have your discussion. So it would be nice if we could have that work out to that meeting, even though, said Mary, you'd miss that interview piece. As long as, you know, you had a quorum, you could do that.
I would think that if we were to have the meeting limited to only interviews, that would probably be the best, because then we wouldn't be discussing anything that might need staff correction or input on.
Yeah. So I guess we need.
That's if the application's closed on 29th, and
Yes,
then
correct. If everything
it gets routed, it gets reviewed, and that you have sufficient number of
applicants, right?
applicants.
Okay.
Because right now you only, I mean, it's not even posted.
I just looked. I haven't seen anything yet. Yeah. Have you seen anything? No.
I think there was something in the booklet that came out with,
In the trail news?
yeah, with the news, Oregon Trail News or
Okay.
whatever it is.
Yeah, typically it's posted on the website
But-
in many different places.
That's the only place I've seen
Okay.
anything.
Okay.
Well, we'll look into that. I guess I was just, when we talked about that October meeting, it was a question of, you know, what would be a good use of that time. And I think there's probably more than just that topic of interviewing. There's probably other things that we could put on the agenda that would be a good use of that time. But just know that neither Martin or I will be there on that week.
Well, if there's a presentation,
Yeah, that was
another
the other
idea.
thing we talked about was presentation. So
from the notes in the agenda, there was some information that was supposed to be coming back to us from other department heads, so.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And a few reports that I owe you guys, but they're not quite ready yet. So.
Well, I assumed that.
So we'll keep looking at that. I think this item 2 is about the, this is about the summary minutes.
Yes. Yes, it's your item.
So, and Bob, I think this came from your meeting you had with Katie Riggs a little bit about the fact that some groups, not this group, because we've got Lisa to do a great job with our minutes, but some of the other groups struggle to get minutes. Usually, you know, they've got someone like me who's running the meeting and maybe and trying to keep notes and then the video, but actually trying to publish meeting minutes or, you know, get them adopted or posting them before they're adopted. I mean, there's kind of a slew of things that was a concern as I understood it from Katie. And it's
Well, it was also with Tony Conkle. Tony Conkle and Katie and I
okay.
had the meeting, and
Well, it was Katie who kind of shared with me what kind of the content of that was. And so I think the outcome is on some of these, instead of the kind of minutes that we've been putting together, doing more minutes that are summarized of the decisions that are made, so that there's still the video, but the time involved in what Lisa does is significant, and that's true for any of the boards and committees. So, am I encompassing all that? Is that
Yeah.
was the idea?
I think that was the idea.
To let you know that I think city-wide, committee-wide, we're going to move towards kind of scaling back those minutes a little bit to make them more, I think, summarized.
well, the TAC minutes are more extensive than most of the other committees.
Yes.
And and I was proud to say that the TAC is one of 2 committees that were very current the city commission also was very current in getting their minutes posted on the website. Some of them were as far back as 3.5 years, they haven't posted any minutes. So, those are, you expressed some of my concerns in that. And like the Historic Review Board, they have a lot of important decisions that they make that affect a lot of people, and they really should be recorded. So anyway,
They're recorded, they're just not created minutes.
well, some of them, no, they're not even, well, they're not recorded because they haven't been brought up for approval.
I mean, they're video recorded.
Video.
Yeah, there are some exceptions to that even. But, if you're doing research for 2 or 3 little items, you have to go through 2 years of video recordings for 2 to 4 hours. It's not very practical
Yeah.
to do that. So I'm very pleased that they're moving forward on that. That makes me feel good.
And then, Lisa, you want to talk about, you put the annual report together?
Yeah, I have a draft of the annual report that I was hoping you would be able to approve, so we can send it to City Commission. That's what we do annually. It's a little late. We typically do it early summer, but I'm hoping you guys can review it and approve it, and we can submit it to them.
We did all this?
You did do all this, but it's been a while, so.
My review of this is that a lot of it is we reviewed stuff or we were informed of stuff. There wasn't a lot of stuff that we actually did, although there are several things that we actually did accomplish. Very good items there. So it's not, the list is longer than the stuff that we actually physically changed or did. It's just we got a lot of information given to us that we processed and hopefully passed on to others. So should we be prepared to approve this annual report at the next meeting?
John?
Say that again?
Should they be prepared to
Should we be
approve?
prepared to approve this annual report at our next meeting?
Yeah, if you haven't looked at it, then we
Yeah.
need to make sure you look at it, and that can happen offline.
Okay.
And I've looked at it, but I'm not sure everybody. has
Sooner
had
we
the
get it,
opportunity.
And then,
the sooner we can present it to
Yeah.
the city commission.
and then I can schedule it on a agenda.
I'm certainly comfortable saying that this is a fair representation of what we did.
You want to do a motion to approve, or you want to?
Well, I will float a motion that we accept this as written and pass it on to the commission as a fair recap of our activities for the year of 2016.
Could I bring up one point?
Sure.
In, I think it was March of 2016,
Okay.
the committee actually voted on a recommendation, and that was my revision to the jaywalking
Jaywalking.
ordinance, and I don't know if that was in there or not. But
Okay.
We still haven't dealt with that, though, have we?
No, we have not. I've brought it up to building and planning a couple of times. They haven't been able to package it with anything else. If we want to do it separately, you can take it to a work session for city commission and bring it up on your own, and then it takes a little longer. But I have looked into that.
As amended by Gary.
All right.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Okay.
Okay, so the next item is mine, I think. Just a public works update on a couple of projects, not all our projects, but these are mostly just topics that you may be interested in. So the Myers Road extension project between really the existing dead end of Myers Road near the high school transportation facility and Highway 213 at Myers Road is well under construction. We've hired OBEC to do the
Construction or
phase.
design?
Sorry.
It said construction. It says under
Design,
construction.
sorry, yeah, design of the the plans, and they've submitted to us 50% design plans, so we're reviewing those now. And that includes Myers Road. It also includes quite a bit of improvement on 213. So there's the addition of a through lane on 213, new signal at 213 in Myers Road. And because we're touching the signal, we're going to have to do all the ADA ramps at those corners, even though in at least a couple of those scenarios they're already there. But because we touch that signal, and they've got new requirements for pedestrian buttons, they have to be closer to the signal. So it's pretty much a redesign. And so we'll be taking care of that. Right now there's a concrete median where 213 traffic that's headed southbound that would be turning onto Myers Road. There's a concrete median there, so that'll be replaced with a turn lane. So there'll be turn lanes really between Myers Road and Molalla, and trying to fit that turn lane in a way so that it really pretty much means that entire center lane will become a turn lane, either turning left onto Molalla or turning left onto Myers, depending on which direction you're going.
Which brings up the question of how to prevent left turns into the old Hagen site directly off of 213 for northbound 213 traffic.
So there's a median there now, and it will remain. So ODOT's requiring a median there, and we proposed a median there as well. So, yeah, and so it will be right now. If you're headed in the northbound direction on 213, there's really only one through lane, and there will be two when we're said and done. And it'll only go a few hundred feet, a couple of hundred feet south of the intersection with Myers Road. But we're talking to the community college is also moving forward with their new kind of parking area and transit center, if you will. So they're actually, I saw a concept drawing of that recently, and they're moving forward with, I think, some of those ideas that's going to make for a nice bus stop at the community college. And then there's a connecting road between the community college and Myers Road. So we're seeing all those kind of details in our 50% plans. We're thinking about things like driveways for some of those undeveloped parcels along there and how to deal with that, but minimize the amount of driveways, and thinking about stormwater treatment along there. And so it's all said and done. Right now, the estimate's just over $8 million, which is a lot more than we had hoped for, but we're still moving forward with that project. And all of that will be built using transportation system development charges. So if you're ever wondering what your transportation system development charges pay for, it's things like this, because that's 100% new capacity that'll be placed there. So yes, so that's the Myers Road update. And if you got any questions, I guess the other piece is schedule-wise, we are hoping for a late spring construction of 2018. So it's moving along. We're still out to acquire right-of-way, which hopefully won't slow us down. But that's still another piece of the puzzle that we need to work through.
But your funding seems the most that potentially can hold the project, right?
Yeah, we plan for funding this, but not as much as what we're seeing the estimates come in at. So I don't think we forecasted enough of the ODOT improvements for our plan, but we have reserves in the SDC fund that we didn't necessarily budget to spend. So that's Myers Road. I didn't have handouts for this. I'm trying to remember if we talked about the 2017 transportation funding package that was approved by the legislature. I don't believe we did. So if you've been watching the news at all, the legislature did approve a transportation funding package that was fairly sizable, but not as big as many in the county were hoping for. It didn't fund the 205 project, right? right? That was what a lot of folks were hoping for, was that it would actually fund the construction of additional lane on 205 between Stafford and Oregon City. But there's a lot of solutions that come out of this legislative fix. And really they involve funding for safe routes to school, involve funding for more local funding for individual projects, which for individual agencies, which is something that is of great interest to us. And for Oregon City, it results in around over a 10-year period, about $8 million worth of additional funding that is above and beyond what we get through gas taxes and above and beyond what we get through our pavement maintenance utility fee. So this is essentially new funding that would help us with some of those, what I'm thinking of is they help us with some of those projects that aren't necessarily fully SDC qualifying projects. Because we, if we can fund it like Myers Road using SDCs, that's pretty helpful because we then, have that source to be able to afford to build those projects. But a lot of the projects that we have are somewhat funded through SDCs. Let's take the roundabout at Leland and Warner Parrott and Warner Milne, that particular project. About 30% of that project would qualify for SDCs, to be funded using SDCs. The balance of that is funding that's not identified, right? And it could be gas taxes, but we don't, most of our gas taxes are spent on day-to-day operations of the facilities, signal maintenance, striping, street sweeping,
Salary.
All those things that play into the effort to do those kind of projects. Snow and ice removal, anything related that we currently spend gas taxes on. So it leaves a small amount, very small amount for, quote, capital, never enough to cover the cost of a project like that roundabout. Now, whether that's the right project to spend that money on or not, that's kind of yet to be seen. But I think it's a solid move by the legislature to help fund really across the state transportation needs. And
Where's that money coming from? Where's that money coming from? How are they paying for it?
So most of the funding that we receive will be coming from there's a 6-cent gas tax for the first couple of years, and then they raise it 2 cents for the next, I kind of forgot.
8 years?
I think, yeah, you're right, 8 years, but it's over a 2-year budget, biennial budget. So I think it's 2 cents it's 6 cents for the first 2 years, and then it goes to 8 cents for the next 2 years, and 10 cents and so on.
It's also an increase to vehicle title and registration fees.
Yeah,
It's supposed to help as well.
There's actually a lot of little pieces to this that is kind of interesting. There's a surcharge for registration fees, surcharge for title fees, gas tax, fees related to heavy trucks, sale of bicycles. I'm trying to remember some of the other.
What about electric cars?
Electric cars, yes, the idea is to try to hit all the users of that system in kind of an equal fashion as opposed to just one. For instance, just hitting freight, for instance. Probably not fair. So that was their take on transportation funding, and I think a couple of things that provides $10 million per year for Safe Routes to School. We don't have a good Safe Routes to School program in Oregon City, so that might be one of those things that TAC looks at in the future to kind of work with the school district and try and inspire some, because the school district's really the most effective at establishing a Safe Routes to School program. Cities can help partner with that, but the expectation is schools are working with their parents to encourage kids to get to walk and bike to school. So if we have a solid Safe Routes to School program in our jurisdiction, then we can apply for some of those funds. And if we don't, and we're more likely to get them if we've got an effective Safe Routes to School program. And we're less likely to get them if we don't. We still may get some, but I think it's pretty competitive.
So should we, I mean, if that's the case, so if we have the plan, then we will get the funding. If we don't have the, I mean, if we're behind the ball, our chances are better.
I think so. Yeah, our chances are way better if we've got an effective and in place Safe Routes to School plan. And if we don't, it doesn't necessarily mean that we won't be, able to get those funds, but I think the competition's going to be pretty heavy. Milwaukee, for instance, their commission is well behind Safe Routes to School. They've been working with the school districts to get, put together a Safe Routes to School program. They're it's not PTA anymore, but whatever those parent organizations are that help send messaging, make sure parents are thinking about ride sharing, thinking about, walking buses, if you will, bicycling to school, bike racks, all those kind of things help.
So John, if I got this right, this is sort of a chicken and an egg thing. You can't get the chicken without the egg, and you can't get the routes without the school, and the school can't get the routes without the city, capital stuff. Would it be reasonable to suggest that we try to get somebody from the school to the school district to come over and chat with us at a meeting about safe routes?
I think that would be a good idea. Yeah. I think that would be a good conversation to have.
Or even maybe a couple of us, we could set up a meeting with the school district and then kind of initiate that.
It's a work plan for the school district, so they need to kind of be thinking about it and get on board with that. I mean, this is a 10-year funding package, so, just because we're not ready for it in 2018 doesn't mean we can't be ready for it in 2020.
Exactly, or whenever, but if we don't get started, we'll never get ready.
Right. Yeah. So, you could do a subcommittee. You could ask them to come here. They may be they'd probably prefer that subcommittee kind of go see them, sit down, then come in front of your.
And I don't mind getting involved. Like I have a 6-year-old and 9-year-old. So
yeah.
They go to Oregon City School District. So.
Yeah, the Oregon City Trail Alliance at one point looked at trying to get the Safe Routes to School program going, and what we found is that it really requires a strong champion within the school district to get behind it. And at that point, we were unable to find anybody in the district willing to take that role on. That's been a few years. Hopefully that has changed, but that was our experience. So that's something for this group to be aware of and start thinking about. Who do we know within the school district that may be willing to?
Was that the case because they're always strapped for money? In this case, they may be willing to do something because the money potential will be there.
At that point, it was simply nobody felt it was a priority.
One of the problems I foresee is that there's, again, a chicken and an egg kind of thing. You don't see many people walking because they can't. You see a lot of children being dropped off by parents because parents are on their way to work. You see almost everybody can be bused. I don't think there's a minimum distance for busing requirement. It's a lot of the stuff I see is the schools are not in spots where you have a good, say, mile radius around the school where you can expect people to walk to.
Not necessarily. I mean, what about the Holcomb? There's a lot of kids in that area that parents drive them because it's not safe to get there.
Right. Holcomb.
I was told by the principal of Holcomb Elementary School about 3 years ago that if we could develop safe routes to schools to that one school alone, they could eliminate 3 to 4 buses daily. And if you've ever been in front of that school, when the buses are sitting there waiting to take the children home, it's mind-boggling how many buses there are.
Yeah, I don't mind actually seeing the principal, talking to her about it.
For Milwaukee, for instance, which has a very active, I've been to, they call it Clackamas County Coordinating Committee meeting. And there was 2 mothers there who were adamant about their Safe Routes to School program. They developed the whole program was through volunteers that were active about this. It wasn't, in this case, the city of Milwaukee staff. It wasn't so much the school district. Now, I think there was some behind the scenes activity. For instance, there's a lot of mapping requirements. You know, we're good at mapping.
In-kind support.
In-kind support, attending meetings, holding the meeting here, or having a place for the meeting, sitting through that and trying to be, helpful that way. But really, the champion is what's needed, Thomas, like you said, finding somebody who's passionate about it and willing to get up and speak to folks, go to neighborhood meetings and do the heavy lifting of that. And that's where even the state will tell you those are the most effective programs for Safe Routes to School, are those that are community driven, not agency driven or not school district driven.
What about, since my daughter is both kids are actually going to Holcomb, and I take them occasionally, I set up meeting with the principal there, talk about this thing, and then see if there's interest within that school, and then how will we go about reaching out the whole school district, and maybe if she's the champion, then she could help us.
I'd encourage that, because when we were pursuing that before, we had actually got permission or donated right-of-ways from property owners on Holcomb Boulevard to build a sidewalk on Holcomb to connect those neighborhoods where they're missing now. And with the exception of one homeowner, they all agreed that they would turn over part of their property to have a sidewalk built. So that's encouraging.
If Holcomb and Park Place are really a hotbed of this, maybe an effort where it's centered on Holcomb only will generate enough interest for the rest of the district to jump in on it.
I think this is typically where the conversation goes. Holcomb's missing a sidewalk, and that would be an amazing link. It's also a pretty big project, right? I remember we estimated this project. It was $750,000 at that point in time, because there's ditches along there too, right? But there may be smaller, more attainable goals, like making sure there's safe routes to maybe a couple of key bus stops where there's lots of children. So if the school district can share, family locations, they get mapped, and all of a sudden you start seeing, well, there's half a dozen families here, but they don't feel good about their kid walking, across some frontage that doesn't have a sidewalk. But maybe that's a much simpler project than Holcomb Boulevard, which is, too big to handle. Or it could be as simple as, needing better bike racks or covered bike racks. I mean, there's other things besides just major capital projects. In fact, Safe Routes to School is more traditionally about providing educational materials and inspiring folks to walk their kids to school, or allow them to walk to school, as opposed to building big capital projects.
But to allow them to be this, for parents to feel safe about letting kids walk, you gotta have a comfort level. And if there's not even correct shoulder or anything, you're not gonna let them go walk. I mean, kids are walking, talking, next thing you know, you got an accident, so.
Well, one good example of a safe route would be the most recent 27-lot subdivision in Holcomb, next to Holcomb School. Is the builder provided a pathway between the development and the school. Therefore, none of those children in that development have to go on Holcomb Boulevard at all. the same thing will be a result of the Sears Annex property up there of 34 point some acres, I think it is, which abuts the school, so it'll be perfect for all those children and all those 100 and some homes for a safe route directly to the school. The problem in Holcomb is 2 neighborhoods up above, further up above, there's a big gap there. And so, but it would be a capital expenditure for sure. I mean, it's,
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the update on the 2017 transportation funding
well,
package.
let's not drop it there though, John. We've talked about getting hold of either the school district or an individual school. Now, where do we go from there? I mean, I don't want to just see the subject dropped.
Okay.
Would it be appropriate for Sedemere to start with Holcomb, or should we have somebody address the school board as a whole?
Start with the grassroots.
We're certainly going to need somebody inside the system, and if the principal of Holcomb was willing to at least start being that,
Champion.
because, you know,
I mean, it's worthwhile. I mean, I'm certainly willing to go and talk to her and see what she has to say, and then we could regroup and then see what the game plan should be.
it could be the neighborhood association president might be the champion too.
Well, that's not me anymore. I decided not to run this time, although I am land use chair. But as chair of the TAC,
There's one other factor that we haven't discussed, and that you can have the safest pedestrian system going for kids and adults. You know, sidewalks and crossings. And,
If they're not used.
But the one thing that you can't control, and if it just happens once, all those other things just get forgotten, and that's the predator amongst us. I don't mean amongst us, but there's predators out there, and we all know it. We just don't want to talk about it. And you just let one kid disappear, and those buses will be full, and those moms will be dropping their kids off. And so you got to take that into consideration. You know, I don't know how you address that, but you don't want to overlook it either.
Well, you don't necessarily have to let the kids go by themselves. It's good exercise for some of the parents to be walking their kids to school and back.
and when the kids go as a
Or
group,
grandparents.
that's a restraint also. But to get things moving on, I'll assign you, Sedemere, to pick up the ball and go with that.
Yeah.
For us, okay, that's great.
I think that's pretty appropriate. You got a volunteer right here and a connection. And you don't have to go big. You can go one school at a time and see if they can find a way to work that into their work plan. Okay, so the 2018 regional bond measure is another funding initiative that's out there. This is driven by TriMet, and TriMet is looking at asking the voters to approve another bond measure. And right now they're just kind of collecting information. I think one of the main projects that they're interested is the Southwest Corridor Light Rail project, which takes light rail, out to the I-5 corridor, from downtown Portland. So what they're asking local agencies for through the various counties is to come up with transportation projects that would be something that the voters would appeal to as well. So there's definitely a lot of concern in the community about traffic congestion, but not so much support for light rail. And so they're trying to pair their light rail projects with road projects and projects that would reduce the amount of driver hours. And so we've suggested for our projects or projects that be on the county's list of projects, because they're asking the counties to coordinate this effort, that we look at the Beaver Creek 213 and the Redland Road 213 intersection as a corridor more. So those projects combined. And we're hoping, when we did the jug handle, that Redland Road project was about 90% designed. And we estimated that project to be about a $10 million project. And then we also know through the alternate mobility study that you're working on, Henry, that a right turn lane from Beaver Creek Road onto 213 northbound is about somewhere between a $3 to $5 million project. So $15 million is what we've listed for the list of projects that would come through the county. And I don't know all the projects that the other agencies listed, but that's kind of what we're looking at.
Is this Metro or TriMet?
TriMet.
With the Beaver Creek Road project and Redland Road too, you could probably stress that being able to move the traffic through those intersections, would it help move the buses through that?
Right? Yeah, that's kind of where we're at with that. I mean, it doesn't perfectly align with some of the criteria that TriMet is looking for, but you're right, it moves more traffic, which means less time, for buses that are in that traffic.
Better able to maintain their schedules.
Right. So that's the 2018. Is there any questions? I mean, that's real broad brush. I don't know a lot of the details about it other than they're asking at the staff level to provide the project list, and then at the elected level through the C4 group, they're considering our recommendations as staff.
What about, having some sort of better connection for bikes across Old Bridge or some other means of, being able to move people on bikes? Because once you get to that bridge, you're not going to be on that bike crossing that bridge. And you kind of have to almost get off the bike and go.
Which bridge?
99 Bridge.
Yeah, right. So, there is the 82nd Bridge option, which is existing today, and there's a lot of bike use on that. But the other one that Gladstone's pushing is the replacement of the old railroad bridge that collapsed in the river a couple years ago.
That's that cove.
That would extend, on their side, it's Portland Avenue, and bring it in through the cove, yeah. And so that's still a regional project that's also a priority. Gladstone's the sponsor of that project.
So, but that will be part of that.
Yeah, I think that's one project that's on the list.
Okay.
If only because they can design it to put a light rail line on it at the same time.
Come down the cove, Agnes Avenue. Wouldn't that be perfect?
Well, that's where it used to be.
Anything been brought up?
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that was a consideration. I'm not sure where that's at right now. I think they're focused more on 205 now than they are coming through Milwaukee and Gladstone.
The old 2040 idea was to have light rail connect all the regional hubs.
Yeah. It still is. I just think that right now they're more focused on the 205 connection than they are the Milwaukee Gladstone connection.
But I still you think about light rail is already, in Milwaukee, just taking it to Oregon City is way less capital expenditure than taking it from downtown Portland down to Tualatin.
Yeah, but I think also bringing it from Clackamas Town Center to Oregon City would be another route that would be relatively inexpensive.
Yeah.
TriMet's definitely, when it comes to rail, and it's not just rail, it's high capacity transit, so it could be larger buses or more buses. They've been deliberate about where they focus, west, east. Now they're looking at southwest, and I guess next would be southeast.
Yeah.
So they're long range projects for sure. Let's see, the other one was Main Street 99. So there's a piece of railroad track that the Blue Heron Mill used to use to bring product into its facility, and they would have to roll those rail cars out onto Main Street for about a block, right? They would cross 99E and then the tracks stop at 6th. And since the mill's been gone and that process is not going to continue, we've been interested in seeing that track spur go away, and looks like we're making progress with ODOT and the rail to get that removed. Had a little bit of trouble getting bidders because it's complicated, and what we heard from one contractor was, it's not very much work, and we got to work with the city, the state, and Union Pacific, and we don't like that recipe very much. So we weren't that interested in bidding on it, but we're going to try and reduce some of that risk for them and give them a little more specifics about what. Really, it's about UP because UP wants to remove the tracks, and then we would come back and pave it, but or the contractor would come back and pave it. So, no specific timeline, but we had hoped to get bids and hoped to actually do that this week.
Yeah.
But since they've put it out twice, they're going to put it out a third time and see if we can't generate a little more interest.
Why couldn't UP just remove the tracks and do some temporary patching, and then you guys have a project that's just street construction?
Well, the idea is to get it done in a pretty short timeline. So, for instance, the first night they'd pull out half the 99E crossing, pull it out and pave it. Put traffic back on there during the day, and then the next night they do the next section, and then this piece that's the city's is along Main Street for that one block. We're talking about a 24-hour closure of Main Street and just getting it all done. So it's not a huge project, and to have the rail in there and do kind of fill it up and repave it temporarily, and it's not.
No, I just thought if you're not getting interest because of the concerns, that was a way around it.
I hate to bring it up, but it's a 2018 project now. You've lost your construction window given your need to go to and award bids and whatnot.
We're hoping not. We're hoping to accelerate it and we're hoping for better weather. So yet this year. So we're hopeful that we can get it done.
October 15th is the cutoff for rain, and we've had it today. So it's coming early this year.
Yeah. Are you the weatherman, Henry?
I am tonight.
I can hear it's raining tonight. I'm hopeful for something better tomorrow.
Well, I heard about
we'll leave that up to
a possibility of another El Nino winter this year already.
You may be right, Henry. I don't know. We can't predict the weather that well. Not even the weather people can. So.
What I can say is that having gone through the old weather records a lot, October 15th is a good average date for the start of the rainy season.
I'd like to suggest that the city organize a weather advisory committee and put Henry in.
Yeah. I've been on big paving jobs on October 31st. Just saying.
Well, I've seen it really nice here too on November.
Okay. Beaver Creek Sewer Extension, that's going to be impactful traffic-wise. I know you guys aren't typically that concerned about sewer projects, but there's a city project that will extend sewer along Beaver Creek Road from, I think it's, you guys will know where this is. It's near the coffee shop, Dutch Brothers. That's probably not the best landmark, but 'cause I can't remember the cross street, but
10th? Are you talking about down on Main?
No.
You're talking about Beaver
up
Creek
on
now.
Beaver Creek,
Okay,
yeah.
got it.
So it's near the Dutch Brothers out on Beaver Creek, and it's going to go out to the high school. What's that?
Maple Lane?
It's a little bit beyond Maple Lane. There's
We turn into the apartments.
Yeah.
right, the apartments. Is that Marjorie or?
Yes,
yeah.
it's Marjorie.
So from Marjorie out, and it's going to be a lot of one-lane flag traffic through there. So it's already it has its moments out there where traffic is pretty heavy if you use that corridor.
Morning and evenings. It's
kind of a
How far out does it go?
Goes out to the high school.
How far out does it go?
Goes out to the high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it to service them or just to future expansion?
Future expansion, but it will pick up their service. They have the school district was allowed to build a private sewer line out there, so it's going to replace that old private sewer line with a larger diameter line that's sized for future development out in the Beaver Creek area. So we'll award that at the first meeting in October, and we don't have a construction schedule, but that's going to be, again, another one of those winter construction projects. And then October 10th, we're still scheduled to have a City Commission work session on transportation SDCs. So this has been long in coming. We had a couple of transportation SDC forums, which some of you may have attended, and got a lot of feedback from the community about transportation SDCs. That combined with a transportation project list that's a little bit better informed than it was when we adopted the transportation system plan. So we intend to take that in front of the City Commission on the 10th, so you may be interested in that.
When's the transportation system plan ready for overhaul, or?
It's not really ready for overhaul. It's not that old. It was done in 2012. Project estimates, we've updated all the project estimates, and there's also a push to not necessarily change the methodology, but look a little harder at the bike ped projects compared to the transportation projects and figure out how do we allocate those a little differently for commercial development. So that combined with some other things like right now our code suggests that if there's been no development on the lot or no use on the lot for the last 10 years, then if it's beyond 10 years, they don't get credit for that prior use. And there's a lot of folks that would like to see that be a longer term, so that if you've got a vacant lot and there's a history of development on that years past, then they'd like to be able to get that SDC credit associated with that. So that's something that's another kind of big item that's on that work session agenda.
What about the Malawa project? On Beaver, extension out to Beaver Creek?
So we still haven't, Metro's been pretty focused on the federally funded projects, and there's that one, if you remember, we got the funds, but it's not a federally funded project, so it's there's less strings attached to the funds, but Metro has yet to, we've been bugging them about that, but they've been yet to sit down with us to tell us what strings are attached to that funding.
Okay.
Because but remember those funds were to be allocated in 2019 through 2021.
But if they don't sit down with you pretty soon.
Yeah, we want to know.
That our money will go away, won't it?
No, it won't go away, but I want to make sure, we've got some right of way to acquire out there.
And design to do.
That stuff takes time. So I'm curious if they'll let us start earlier and let us maybe spend our money, but make sure that some of the requirements for those federally funded projects, you can't start them until they've actually
awarded
those. And in this case, I'm hoping Metro will be a little more flexible. But yeah. Okay.
Item 6A, 82nd Avenue Bike Ped Bridge 9-month closure notice. Is that just an informational thing?
Yeah, under communications, they're both informational items.
Okay. So we're down to future agenda items. I have one, I'll just jump right in here. For next month, the Park Place Neighborhood Association members, many of the members, are getting more and more concerned about the situation on Holcomb Boulevard as more and more developments are being developed in the Park Place area, and their main concerns are traffic on Holcomb Boulevard. And they would like to have some input and some good information from the city about the future plans, which I would refer to the TSP, of course, and possibilities of maybe pushing forward some of those plans. These are items that, well, I've addressed the Planning Commission one or two times about the cumulative effect of all those housing developments going in Park Place neighborhood, and there's only one road going out of there, and that's Holcomb Boulevard. The people are getting more and more, I'm not going to say concerned, I'm going to say upset. They're getting the feeling that the city doesn't really care about their problems. And I have been instructed to request that next month the discussion on Holcomb Boulevard issues be on the agenda. Now, they're going to come here en masse, either as part of the agenda or as citizen comments. You know, that is their intention. Because every time we have a meeting, whether it's a general meeting or whether it's a steering committee meeting, those concerns are probably the foremost subject.
One thing you may have to think about for the next month, he's not going to be here, Martin's not going to be here. So they're going to be talking to, I guess, rest of the members present here and Lisa. So next month may not be the best time for them to storm the building.
I was kind of thinking that would be perfect timing.
The other thing too is that facing us is a chair and vice chair nomination and election. I think. Am I right?
For next month?
Yeah.
I think it's November.
Are we on our first year or, well, I can't remember which year we're in as the 2-year thing, but I think we're in the second year of our run here, and so they need to be. And the other one is we generally don't have a December meeting, and so it would be next available one where we could assume that we'd have staff available to talk would be January or February.
What happens in November?
Good question.
Because it's to the point
Yep.
where if they don't get some answers, all they're doing is getting more upset and upset all the time, and it's getting to be a mess.
Yeah.
And when I was chair, I sometimes had a hard time answering their questions. Now I'm the land use chair. I'm still having a hard time answering their questions about what's involved in the future and trying to get them to understand how expensive it is to get the improvements, and to get Holcomb Boulevard widened would be a huge, huge thing. Some people say it's impossible, but I say there's nothing that's not possible. You just have to get some right-of-way approvals. But
And I don't think there's a plan for widening Holcomb.
no, there isn't. But the talk has been out there about that possibility. Another thing is the continual backup of Redland Road at Highway 213. You know, it seems like it just keeps getting worse almost monthly. I mean, it's now it's become a problem not only just in the morning rush hour, but extended. Sometimes, and I don't know why it happens, but sometimes there's a 3-signal wait there in the middle of the day. I don't know why that happens, but
Well, I know.
I'm just trying to explain that, you know, one way or another, the neighborhood is going to end up here with some real strong questions and strong feelings about what help the neighborhood can get for the situation on Holcomb Boulevard in relation to the accumulation of all these developments.
Do we have anyone that could present next month for them? Do we have anyone that would be able to present next month for them on this issue, or is everyone?
I'd rather wait if John
Okay,
I'm trying to
and
think.
Martin
Okay.
are not available,
okay,
because what I'm afraid then is, regardless of why you're not here, some of them would say, well, you know, the head man wasn't here and he didn't want to address us.
okay.
You know, I mean, those are real life attitudes.
So how does TAC help them? I mean, they're going to come in and voice their frustration at us.
But we're the only show in town.
Well, I know we are, but John,
That's not true.
John will be here, and but how do we? We kind of have a limited things we could do here. How do we? I guess we can listen to them and maybe summarize that, and then, where do we take those concerns to? How do we?
Well, one thing would be there's a crosswalk in the TSP on Holcomb and Oak Tree Terrace. Very bad place for a crosswalk. You couldn't find a worse place for a crosswalk. So, they would have some suggestions that we would be able to pass on to whoever or whatever, however, of a better place for that crosswalk. Then you could tell them how much that crosswalk would cost. Because the crosswalk, that particular crosswalk, would either have to be placed further down Holcomb Boulevard or further up Holcomb Boulevard instead of right at the crest of Holcomb Boulevard, and it would have to be signalized. So, what's the cost of something like that? Explain to them that, that costs $8 million, it costs $800,000. Give them a realistic figure of what that would cost, and then maybe give them some information of the progress of the Beaver Creek Highway 213 problems that they're trying to solve. And part of that, I think, includes Redland Road and 213, doesn't it?
Yeah.
As a sort of an add-on, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I've heard some suggestions about bringing a entrance to the freeway, would be westbound from Holcomb Boulevard, down onto Highway 213. It's been expressed that there wouldn't be enough merge area along there. Well, why not? I don't have any answers, but it seems like it'd be a great.
So I guess we could have them listen. Then we could take their concerns maybe, and then have a discussion on that with this. I don't know.
Well, we're a sounding
Yeah.
board.
I'm trying to think.
We listen to citizens'
How
comments
to
all the
make something
time.
like that positive versus, a bunch of folks coming with their pitchforks and wanting to, yell at you, me, whoever else, right?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if it would make sense to have more of a, we could have, I think Carl from DKS or John Repplinger, who does a lot of our land use approvals for traffic control. And we could talk about our TSP and what the projects are planned for that area. And, if there's a crosswalk that's shown, half of the crosswalk information that's on there is schematic anyway, just showing that we need to, put something in at some point. There's no good place for pedestrians to cross Holcomb, really.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the positive thing, though, is you just brought up that additional funding for traffic that we're going to have over a period of 10 years.
yeah.
We might be able to shove forward some of those projects.
And another way of looking at it too is this same concern has been expressed on South End Road. It's been expressed on Mooalla. It's been expressed on Warner Parrott, Warner Milne. This is not limited to Holcomb per se. We have got lots of new development occurring on the fringes, and they all want to come through town, and there's only a certain number of ways to come through town. So, and that's basically what you're saying about Holcomb.
Except Holcomb doesn't have a whole bunch of side streets that can go anywhere.
Yeah, there's one, you can go down Miranda and come out on Clackamas River Drive, which
Yeah.
isn't a big help.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing, since you mentioned, if we had somebody come in and maybe do a presentation on, just focus on that Park Place area, kind of blow up that system, the transportation master plan. Here's the projects, and then maybe somebody from city explain, okay, how do you go about, when would these projects come online? Like, we have to collect, if this subdivision occurs, then we'll collect these SDCs and then we'll be able to do this, or this project will be required to do this once they do it.
Right.
Kind of walk them through that process. Okay, if the 150 lots are coming online, we'll be able to do this, or, they'll be required most likely to do following things.
Right. Yeah.
And that at least people can visualize, okay, once this comes on, then we'll have this traffic issue, and this is how it's going to be addressed as part of the kind of free sequencing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
the
I'll
hard part
certainly
is
address the
most
meeting.
of those folks need, a lot of the messaging is going to be that there is going to be more congestion. And, that's just the nature of a growing community like Oregon City. We're probably the next Milwaukee, right? They probably are pretty frustrated with all the Oregon City traffic cutting through their community. And, so.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. If people understand, okay, we're growing as a community, this is a slated, this area is going to grow by, 1,000 houses, and traffic will go, but, here's the steps the city is taking to remedy some of those effects of that urbanization. I mean, you are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not allowing 1,000 homes to come in without having some sort of
Right.
plan.
It's actually holding up any zone changes at this point in time.
There's another actor in this whole thing, and that's Clackamas County. As long as they keep issuing building permits where the residents are coming through Oregon City.
That's just, it's everywhere. Anywhere you drive, it's getting bad at 11 o'clock, at noon. It's just, there's on average 200 families moving to Oregon a day.
That's right.
So there's no way around it, but I guess if people are informed and understand how the city is trying to deal with this thing, then it's not as bad thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People just want information. So if they understand this is what we can do as a community with the funds that we have available, then I think people will accept that. Not everybody, but vast majority of reasonable people will understand that development comes with a price.
Well, I've tried to explain to people how hugely expensive infrastructure is. But I think that I'm just plain old Bob LaSalle, who lives on Oak Tree Terrace in Oregon City. And you guys are the guys that pull the strings and have the answers. And
It's actually
hopefully.
It's actually worse than that. What it really is that nobody wants to deal with it, so it's out of sight and out of mind.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Well,
What do you mean nobody wants to deal with it?
Well, there is
Politically, John, politically.
there is
If you were gonna approach this politically, that's where the money comes from.
right,
Okay, you'd end up being an SOB.
right.
I mean, you're taking on some problems here which are hundreds of millions of dollars. And in order to do that, you're gonna have to talk loud and long to a lot of people that don't like you and don't wanna hear it. They know it, but they just don't wanna hear it. Because once they've heard it, now they gotta react. They've gotta make a decision. I'm gonna go after it and be on his side, or I'm not. You're gonna push a lot of people the wrong way. A lot of politicians are looking for money for their neighborhoods and stuff like that. We're dealing with a limited resource. A limited resource. It's called money. That's why we have a 5% limitation on our property tax, because a property owner isn't willing to have his home go be taxed out of oblivion so that the elderly people have to move out. So what I'm saying is, there's a solution to this. It's called money. We know that. Look at the transportation plan, over $200 million. And then if you had $200 million, it'd be 15, 20 years to get that stuff implemented.
And it'd be
People want a solution now. So we can listen to them, but they're expecting an answer. Well, the answer is money. That's it. And you have to be an SOB. I'm being an SOB right now, just talking loud. You guys know all this, but it has to be on the record. Somebody has to say it. And then somebody has to get up and be willing to take on the burden of going out into the public and running for office and making this happen. John can't make it happen. I'm amazed at what he does happens with this limited resource. This whole city is operating on a dime, and the public doesn't know it because nobody's telling them.
Actually, I thought it was more of a nickel
Well,
myself.
it might be a nickel, but you see what I'm getting at? I mean,
Yeah.
So, Bob, I guess the big question is it seems like October is probably not perfect. So we can look at November. That'll give me a chance to kind of figure out, who might be, what that, both presentation so that those folks can get informed and an opportunity for them to speak up. Hopefully there'll be less speaking up because we do a good job informing. But I know that there's folks that aren't really that interested in hearing about the solutions. They're more interested in, complaining.
Oh, yeah,
growth.
there's always those people, yeah.
There's always people that are frustrated with growth at all and change at all, right?
I recommend we put this on the November agenda, so that way we have something that you can go out there and say, okay, they put this on the November agenda for them to discuss in that, and we can seek them, the citizens involved, our input at the same time.
Yeah, because we have an October general meeting, and that's when the officers were going to present this to the general meeting people. But at that general meeting, I can give them confidence that it'll be on the November agenda and the good reasons why it was not on the October agenda. Because the October agenda, like Park Place met last night, so in October, the TAC meeting is the meeting directly the next evening. So if we could do that, that would be great.
Oh, so your October meeting is what day, Bob?
Oh,
Is it the 16th?
I don't have it at my fingertips. I think it's the
Is it the
third
16th?
Tuesday, or third Monday, I believe.
Yeah, the 16th, Monday the
Okay.
16th.
So it might make sense for me to come to that October 16th meeting just to set the stage a little bit differently than what you might set the stage for, or whoever's running the meeting.
Well,
And it
I don't think so, John, because, I'd love to have you there, but we are severely restricted at the location we have our meetings at time-wise. And we already have Tony Conkle and one other presenter. Tony is going to give us his presentation on the situation of the city, or whatever you call it. Let me get back to you on that. I would love to see you there, but I wouldn't want to, we have to be out of there by 8 o'clock. We start at 6:30 and we have to be out of there at 8 o'clock because at that point, the custodian goes on overtime. They get a little upset at us. And we don't have enough funding in the Park Place Neighborhood Association to pay for his overtime.
Where's the meeting at?
We have it at the Academy School, at the old Park Place School. What the hell's the name of that academy?
Alliance Charter Academy?
Alliance Charter School.
Yeah,
Charter School?
Yeah. We've been having them there for the last several years.
They're proposing to come here though, aren't they?
No.
No, we have our general meeting in October, and they were gonna come to the TAC meeting, the following evening.
Yeah, okay.
But now I'll be able to tell them, for good reason, it wouldn't be advisable to come to the October meeting because of the lack of city staff available to give answers. And, but November, definitely, we are on the agenda,
Oh, okay.
so
Yeah. Sure.
that would work. Okay. And I always tell those people too that you come to these meetings, it's not a beat 'em up kind of thing. You know, you express your opinions in a polite manner and accept the answers that you get. Because I know there've been a couple of meetings at Park Place that have been a little bit rough. I was accused one time of being in collusion with the builders and timing our meetings so that they couldn't have any input. Okay.
No, that's just silly. Those kind of comments are silly.
I know it, but they went clear to the city manager with it, so. So thank you for that. Any other future agenda items?
I just want to clear up a question that Henry had about chair and vice chair. You guys did nominations last November, so this is the second year, 2018 will be your second year of your 2-year term.
Okay, so
So we don't need to make any more nominations for this, yeah.
So we're up.
Yeah, it's you guys again?
We just have to fill the vacant places.
Yes.
Or spots.
Yes.
Okay, I guess that's it.
So we should have nominations either October or November if we're going to delay, if we're going to have election on the next meeting after the nominations. That
You
would-
mean for the vacancies,
Yeah.
but we don't need nominations for chair and vice chair. Yeah.
Anything else? This meeting is adjourned.